Thanks, Jill. And thanks everyone for joining. So just to kick things off, I just want to really give a bit of background to Kainos, the company, just before we get into the main content of the webinar. So Kainos is a Workday partner. We primarily deal with implementations over here in the European market. We are a Workday customer ourselves. So with regards to the testing piece around Workday, we have went through that and have experience in our own implementation as well. And that really feeds into what we're here to primarily talk about today, which is Kainos Smart, which is our automated testing product for Workday. And there's actually some handouts in your panel there if you want to have a quick look at those at any stage. But with regards to Kainos Smart, the product, and how we can offer that, one of the main reasons for that is that we are actually a testing partner of Workday. So whenever the Workday update windows come around and the weekly patch updates, we actually get early access to that and are able to pre-build the automation in order to execute your tests. So whenever we're considering about how we should test this smart way, we really need to think about when the features are released in order to know when to test. So the first of these is the service update releases. These are the weekly patch updates from Workday, and they're typically for bug fixes and non-impactful features, and any features that would require significant configuration. You'd have to opt in for those, but obviously if you are opting in for those, you're going to have to do your regression testing around that. The more significant updates then, the biannual updates from Workday. These include the feature enhancements during the five-week update window, and that's really primarily what we're here to focus on today whenever it comes to the testing around that. And this is where you're performing your testing in your preview tenants, and importantly it is against your data. So obviously Workday have tested this functionality previously, but it is really about testing the data in your tenants against the new functionality, and Workday actually really value that feedback from you as well. And another time whenever you may want to test is with the web service updates as well, and they happen around every 2 months. And that's really with the interfaces that you have to and from Workday, whether it be payroll, benefits, and all of those integrations. So first then, we'll just think about what regression testing is. So it is a testing activity to check that the changes being introduced don't impact this parts of the system that are not changing. And those are typically the changes that are made during the change control process. So whenever we think about when it needs done, as we've already highlighted, it's going to be those service updates every week, the feature releases biannually, the web service updates every 2 months. But in addition to that, it's also going to be whenever you're making ongoing configuration changes. For example, if you happen to add a new sub-process in your hire BP, or if you happen to take up an additional feature in Workday. So for example, again, just the financials module. So whenever we're planning for this regression testing, we're going to have to come up with a variety of different scenarios. So whenever we say a test scenario, what we mean is a specific testing component that links 2 or more individual steps in order to achieve the larger goal of validating an entire business process. So that could be you're hiring in a US employee, and you want to also ensure that that US employee then feeds down into your payroll system. So already you can identify probably that there's different components to that particular scenario, and these are often referred to as test scripts or test cases. So within that scenario I just talked about, you would have your new hire in the US and that employee that you're hiring in, but you would also have a component to test your, for example, your payroll system that you're feeding that employee down into. And pertinent to that test case then, you're going to have the test data that's required. So that might be user IDs, supervisory orgs, pay groups, things like that. And in the scenario again, we have our US employee, so they're going to have to be hired in a particular location within the US as well. So what test scenarios should you really be targeting? And just to re-emphasize that you should be focusing really on those configurations that are specific in your tenant. So that could be your leave type or any country-specific onboarding logic. So different countries are going to have different documents that they need to review, and you're going to have to validate that is the case. And these are really going to be derived from the requirements documentation. But in addition to that, you're going to also do this in conjunction with the functionality that's introduced in the update windows that we've already talked about. And just on that, I guess a lot of customers find that finding the areas that they want to really target with their testing and getting the information that they need for these update windows, they find that they get this in the service update notes that are published weekly, and also in the what's new in preview reports that are on community, and in your preview tenant as well during the update window. You can also subscribe to some Workday exceptions on community, which is a really useful way to find out about the changes that are coming downstream. But you're also going to have to consider what your most business critical paths are. So with the HCM, it's common that these are the hire, the change job, and the termination BPs. But each tenant's different, and each customer is going to have their own priorities. So in order to do that, you're going to have to find those priorities out in a planning session and prioritize the BPs in order to make sure that you're really hitting those critical processes. You know, it isn't likely that you're going to have the time or resources for every single combination in every business process, and that's really where automation can help with the workload and get the coverage of the testing that you would really like. And I guess that's where Kainos Smart comes in. So Kainos Smart is the only automated testing product that is designed specifically for Workday implementations, and it is built with the business user in mind. So I mentioned earlier we are QA partners with Workday, and we have pre-built the automation within Smart, and we're also able to maintain that automation. So essentially, if you want to run a test on your Workday tenant, there's no maintenance on the automation side required. Kainos Smart is a software as a service product, much like Workday, and we don't limit you in any way as to the amount of tests that you perform, whether that be the number of tenants that you want to test against or the number of actual tests that you want to perform. So during the update window, you're going to want to focus on the preview, the sandbox preview, and the sandbox tenants. And then throughout your implementation, you might have a number of implementation tenants that you want to test against, and we can point Smart at all those different tenants. So Kainos Smart has over 45 customers now. You can see a selection of these on screen at the minute. You'll see a variety of different industries represented here and a variety of different company sizes. So obviously we'll be delving a lot more into the Netflix story today, but we have clients ranging from 300 employees right up to over 100,000 employees. So no matter what size of organization you are going to have that testing requirement, and the automation can really help with that. If we think about manual testing then and how that's typically performed, so from talking to the customer base out there, what we find is that customers will divide up the different core areas and the different scenarios that they have identified during their planning, and their testers would manually enter the data that's required in order to perform those different scenarios, whether that be in the financials area or checking the security policy. And really, you know, you can only perform one test at a time for each tester. With Kainos Smart, the view is very similar. The only difference being is that Smart will do the leg work for you. So you're able to run those concurrent tests across the different core areas within your Workday implementation and really get the coverage that you want. With regards to the functionality that Smart can currently offer, we currently have 3 core modules. So the HCM module, we have the business process support. So that will allow you to run through your end-to-end business process scenarios and test your validation rules and any routing logic that you might have on your business processes. And with the integrations, we can help really in 3 main ways. The first of which is utilizing the business process support that we have to input data into your Workday tenant. So from talking to our customer base, we have found that they find the data entry for test and integrations a time-consuming aspect, and they're able to utilize Smart to input the bulk of data that they need. We can then also launch all of your integrations at once with the different parameters that are required, whether that be the pay group or a particular date range. And then the third component of our integration support is we can actually do a line-by-line comparison on the output files that are produced by those integrations. So again, we have customers who have well over 100 integrations, and they're able to utilize the HCM module in order to verify that their output files are in the format that the vendors would expect whenever they're fed downstream. With regards to the financials module then, it's similar in the concept of the HCM, only you'll be able to test all of your different financial BPs. So you might want to focus on the custom validation rules that you have, any threshold amounts, and the general account posting rules set to make sure that it posts to the right journal, for example. And then on the security, this breaks down into 2 core components, the first of which is our field permission security. So that allows you to check whether or not a particular employee in your tenant can see sensitive data about another employee. So, can my HR partner access my total compensation value, and also verifying that a peer in the same supervisory org can't. With the available action security, which is the second part of the module then, we can also then check whether or not a particular employee can access a related action off of a business object. So can my finance partner access the create ledger related action off of a particular company, or can my HR partner access the terminate employee related action off of a particular worker in the tenant as well. And we're seeing really good traction with this. At the European Rising event last week, one of our customers, AstraZeneca, they were talking about how they execute approximately 50,000 security checks on a weekly basis, which, when you think about it, over the course of a year is over 2.5 million security checks, which you just couldn't do manually. And these numbers aren't, they're atypical of our customer base. Clients are running 50, 60, 70,000 security checks on a weekly basis to make sure that their security hasn't been impacted, and really that you're ensuring that you can prove to your your teams internally that everything has been done to ensure that the security is as it should be. So this is a typical test run in Smart. It's for an HCM business process, and in here what we're doing is actually hiring in employees and then doing comp changes on those employees, one-time payments, and then putting them on leave. So there is a flow of data between these different processes. What happens then whenever we execute a test in Smart? This video is just a visual representation of what happens whenever we want to kick off a test pack in Smart. So the video here is for a hire example. So Smart, whenever you execute a test, will launch a browser instance in the cloud. As I said, Smart is software as a service, so it's going to open up that browser instance and enter in all of the test data that you've specified for your different scenarios throughout your planning. So you can see here it's inputting all the different data required for the pre-hire to be created, and then furthermore to hire into that particular position. And Smart's actually reading this business process definition in real time as well. So it's dynamically interacting with your Workday tenant, and it'll do so, and in doing so will trigger any validation rules. What that also means is that Smart's actually able to pick up who is up next in a process. So you can see here that Betty Lou is assigned the assigned organizations task, and Smart's actually able to proxy in as Betty, go to her inbox, and enter the necessary data for the assigned organizations task. So Smart's able to do this process until it either hits a breakpoint or reaches the completion. So you can see our hire process is actually completed here after Teresa Serrano has done her review. And the beauty about Smart is that not only can you run that one hire process, we can actually run the 16 hires in this case concurrently. So we're able to get that coverage that we'd want with our execution. So you can see those hires are just finishing off right now. So once we go back into Smart, we can actually have a look at exactly what's happened within the test execution. So we'll have a look at this hire example quickly. And what I can actually do is drill down into the hire and see the steps that were performed and also who they were performed by. So you can see in this particular example, we triggered the onboarding, which Declan O'Sullivan was able to do employee as self. So that's really just showing how Smart is able to utilize the proxy functionality in and out as each employee and perform the necessary steps in order to get to the end of the process. Now, if something happens to fail within your business process, Smart will also be able to capture this detail. So we have a request one-time payment here where we expected 2 approvals, but it actually failed to complete. So I can drill down in again and see exactly what's happened. Straight away I can see that there was meant to be an approval by the bonus approver type role, and if I click on the error message, I can actually see the exact reason why this test failed. So I'm sure some of you have probably seen this before, where you get an unassigned role within your tenant. And the beauty about Smart again is that if there is a failure encountered in your business process, Smart will actually capture a screenshot of the Workday tenant at the moment in time whenever that failure was encountered. So you can see there that we have our unassigned task within our Workday tenant. As an extension of this as well, and as I mentioned earlier, you're able to bulk launch your integrations. So not only are you able to test, that the new sub process that you've added to your hire works exactly as you'd expect it to, but you can also then check, for example, that your payroll is still producing the output files in the format that you'd expect them. So you can see here that I have a test run that runs the different third-party payroll integrations that I have in my tenant for the different countries. And then we can then perform the comparison on those as well, which we'll see Netflix talk about a bit later. With regards to the security and what a typical test run looks like for that, you can see here that I've ran a security pack against my sandbox preview tenant during the update window, and the first test in here has failed. So we'll be able to see exactly why that is in a moment. But again, just as a representative tool, I've got a video to show you exactly how Smart performs those security checks. So again, Smart will be able to launch that browser in the cloud and proxy in as the user that you want to check the security of. So in this case, I'm checking the security of Logan McNeil, my HR partner. Now down the right-hand side, I've got all the different results that I would expect with my security matrix that I have in place in my tenant. So Smart's able to go through one by one and check if that security is exactly as I'd expect. In the second scenario here, which is for my payroll interface partner, Betty Lou, I'm able to proxy in this her. Again, I've got all the different results down the right-hand side that I expect, and Smart's straight away able to find a discrepancy within my security setup. So I expect the request compensation change action to be available, and it's actually not. So that's something that we'd expect to be highlighted. And the same here within the procurement section. So create requisition wasn't supposed to be available, and it actually is. So again, Smart will be able to flag that up straight away, and you can act upon that. So if we go back to the test run and how that looks, and again what Smart will output with regards to security. So as I said, we have our failure in the first item here in my test pack, and I can drill down in again and see exactly what's happened. So I didn't expect the view compensation related action to be available for John Johnson, but it actually is. And Smart will again be able to capture a screenshot of Workday at the moment in time whenever that particular security flaw was uncovered, so we can see that the related action is actually available in this instance. Another one of the key features in Smart is that we can re-execute our test packs with a click of a button. So this is the global view that we have to track all the tests that we've executed, and you can see that by clicking the re-execute button I can kick off a number of scenarios quite easily, and whenever I click that I'll be able to kick that pack off against multiple tenants, and I'm also able to avail of a scheduling functionality. So as this is software as a service, we don't have to sit around and watch the tests. We could actually kick these off overnight if we wanted and come in the next morning and analyze the results, and that is what our customer base is doing, and obviously getting great efficiencies from the testing. One of the newer features that we've introduced as well is that we allow you to set the test case results automatically. So this actually allows you to compare two different test executions and verify that they matched or didn't match depending on what you expected. So this gives you a typical view on how this would look in Smart whenever you've done a test execution comparison. So to refer back to the scenario that I showed you earlier where we were missing the bonus approver role, I was then able to go into my Workday tenant and assign that role, and you can see that the execution the second time round has then picked up Teresa Serrano, who I assigned to that particular role. And we can see the comparison view that notes the different path that was taken within the execution. So if you did happen to add that new hire subset, that would also be reflected in here as well. So in summary, our customers are able to utilize Smart for security testing, compliance, business process testing, integration testing, and also for training preparation. So that was really just a brief overview as to what the Smart product can offer. So I know a lot of you have probably seen the Netflix video that we have online at the minute, and we did try and convince Suda to come along and tell us a bit more about her experiences. Unfortunately, she wasn't available today, but we were able to interview her in advance and just really delve more into that Netflix story and what they have achieved by utilizing automation in their test strategies. For those of you that haven't seen the video, I'm just going to play this to give you a bit of context as to the Netflix implementation and how they've utilized Smart within that.
We are using Smart Automation tool to test our HCM related business processes, integrations, and security. So implementation of Smart tool at Netflix was very successful. Smart's real-time interaction with Workday tenant really helps us to retain the existing test cases with less maintenance, just focusing on the test data. So I would say like using Smart tool is really kind of benefiting our testing process. As we are all aware that security plays a vital role in our HCM data world. So Smart, helps us with a lot of automations around security, especially field level permissions and as well as the available action security module, where Smart helps us to set up the test data to verify that all our security policies are in place. We use security testing every week to make sure all our security policies are in place. We have bi-weekly meetings scheduled with Kainos support team, and also we have the support team come in person on site to discuss about the finance functionalities that they're going to roll out, and also we are working with them providing our requirements, and they are kind of helping us to satisfy our requirements in the finance area. Also, when talking about the training, Kainos support team was on site giving us an extensive training, hands-on extensive training, where we get used to the tool and we were able to take the tool with so easy and comfortably. Based on my experience so far with Smart Automation tool, I would say we are seeing a lot of benefits using Smart, and especially for regression testing, integrations, and also on the security side. So I would highly recommend using Smart for the HCM related test automations.
Okay, so hopefully that gives you good background on the Netflix and their use of Smart, and also whets the appetite a little as well, because we're going to delve a bit more into how exactly Netflix use Smart and some of the key benefits that they're seeing. The first of which that I want to cover is really something that we've referred to already, and that's the integration testing and the flow of data, and how we can test the stuff like payroll, for example. So I'll just play this short video to hear from Sudha and how they've utilized Smart in this way.
So the integration test that we perform is mainly focused on benefits and payroll. Say, for example, for benefits, we have outbound integrations where we send out the files to our benefit providers such as Cigna, Kaiser, VPN, as well as 401k Fidelity. And when coming to payroll, basically we send our payroll related data to the vendor for tax processing purposes. So basically for the integration testing, let me take the benefits integration that has been set up in Smart. So benefits integration is being split up into 3 steps. So step 1, we have the benefits integration run and get the outbound file. And as a second step, we do the personal information change, where, say, for example, an employee's address change is being performed there. And as step 3, we rerun the benefit integration again to get the output file after the address change. So then we have an automation step in Smart where we compare the files before the personal information change and after the personal information change to see if we get the change data in place so that it reaches the vendors in a correct format.
So it's obviously great that Netflix are able to utilize this process within Smart and fully test their integrations, and this is typically what we see as the process whenever it comes to testing those integrations with the update windows. One of the ways that you can test your integrations. To have a look at how that would look in Smart, so the scenario that Sudha specifically talked around was their benefits integration and feeding in personal data changes that have been made to that benefits file. So this is typically what that would look like in Smart, and you can see how we can sequence the processes, so there's a flow of data, much like the business process notation really that you have within Workday and how you'd order those steps. And then as Sudha mentioned, you would be able to perform that comparison on the output file and verify that the lines within those files would match. So in this particular scenario that you're seeing on screen, this is a payroll file that has slightly different payment amount totals contained within it. And what Smart does is actually output all of the differences within your output files, and also 10 lines of context for troubleshooting that particular issue, if it happens to be an issue, depending on what exactly you're testing. The next aspect that Sudha is going to talk about then is around their security and exactly how they go about testing their security policies. So I'll just roll the video.
Security plays a vital role in our HCM data world. We have different pay groups in our tenant where they have their own data visibility. So a pay group, a security group that's been intended for one single pay group cannot have the visibility of the data in the other pay group. So Smart, helps us with a lot of automations around security, especially field level permissions and as well as the available action security module. Say, for example, we have a certain data that should be visible only to a certain security group, as well as we also have the restriction that certain actions will be available or should be available only to a certain security group, where Smart helps us to set up the test data to verify that all our security policies are in place.
So just to elaborate a bit more on what Sudha's talking about there, the different pay groups that you refer to, that's really an intersection within their tenant, and it is quite common with the ever-growing nature of security that you will eventually introduce some intersections, especially if you happen to be live in different countries. So with Smart, you are able to check all of those different intersections and verify that your security policies are in place. And just to refer to the numbers earlier, some of our clients are running millions of checks a year on their security to really make sure that they've done everything that they can in order to verify that their security is in place, and go to those teams internally and say, here you go, here is our the audit of the security testing that we've performed. So just as a final video from Sudha, she's going to talk a bit around some of the other benefits that they're seeing from automation in Smart.
So a Smart testing tool is being helpful for us in regression testing. Say, for example, if you want to test our end-to-end process starting from the hire till the termination, it's been used, and we are also using the regression testing every week after the workday updates. Coming to the ongoing project, again, Smart tool has been very useful there. Say, for example, since we are moving to different countries, hire process takes place in various locations. And so when coming to onboarding process, there are specific documents that should be added based on the location where we are hiring an employee. So Smart plays a vital role in testing those and making sure the right documents are in the right place for an employee based on his work location. Now, coming to the VPs and integrations, we can prioritize them and we can rerun them, and also we have an advantage of scheduling our test runs at whatever time we want them to be executed. Now, coming to the reason and cancel functionalities that Smart has provided us, it's really beneficial that we can rerun our test runs repeatedly again and again without the business object getting impacted in our workday tenant.
So Netflix are obviously getting a lot of value out of automation within their testing for Workday, and just summarize some of the business benefits that all of our customers are getting from using Smart. So you will have a reduced cost with the that is associated with the testing efforts throughout your implementation and post-production. You have those packs that you can re-execute over and over again, and it's very straightforward to perform that effort. And that is the second point, that the reduced effort that is involved by using automation. With the manual testing, you're going to have to input the same level of effort every single time you go to test, whether it be for the updates or ongoing projects. With Smart, you can just click a button and rerun that test on demand. This also increases the quality of your testing. Whenever you're manually testing, you might get a slight variation of the test and the data that was used within that particular scenario. But with automation, you're guaranteed that the same data is going to be entered every single time whenever you run that particular test. And what we seen earlier in Smart is that you actually get a global tracking of your testing. So Smart is a living and breathing audit of all the testing that you've ever performed against all your different Workday tenants, and we can report off that in a nice way to give you some statistics. And ultimately, what this is going to do is just reduce your overall risk that is associated with your testing, which ultimately is going to make certain people in your company very happy.
Great, thanks Tim. This is Will here. It was very interesting to hear how Netflix are, getting great use out of Smart, as always. The rest of our customers are as well. We have had a good number of questions, so hopefully we can get through them all, but if not, we can definitely respond after the webinar. So the first question, Tim, that I have is, how quickly is Smart up and running after various releases go live? In other words, is there a delay while Smart is tested with Workday first?
Yeah, so the answer to that, Will, is that there isn't a delay. So we, as I mentioned earlier, have that QA partnership with Workday, which gives us that early access. So we have talked to Workday customers in the past who have attempted to write some of their own automation. But the problem with that is, Workday is evolving at a rapid rate, as we all know. So because we have that partnership in place, we get the early access and we can maintain the automation that's already been pre-built, so that whenever it comes to those update windows, you can just rerun those packs that you have built up within Smart over and over again.
Okay, thanks Tim. The next question here is Smart, can Smart be used for first-time implementations, or is it just for post-production, as you've mentioned?
No, it is absolutely intended for both purposes. So if you're using Smart throughout your implementation, you're going to have the added benefit, obviously, that you have your tests ready to rerun over and over again from the beginning. But you can absolutely use Smart through implementations, and a lot of our customers have done so. And they have been able to test particular components of their implementation. I know I've worked with clients directly before who, focused on their priority BPs and utilize Smart to run a high number of termination scenarios, for example, through their tenant. And obviously then, as I said, once you go live, you're able to run those test packs over and over again. So there's absolutely value in both when you're implementing and also once you go live with Workday as well.
Okay, cool. Another question, maybe sort of following on from that a little bit, is what is the effort involved in getting Smart set up from a customer perspective?
Yep, so the effort from the customer is minimal. We actually have some wizards within Smart that help you build up your test scenarios first time round, and as part of that as well, we do have a great team here at Smart that work in partnership with the customer to ensure that the test coverage that they want is met. So basically, with that partnership and with the wizard, you can build up your scenarios in a short time frame, And one of the things, particularly around the security feature, is that we have the baseline functionality. It's something that we didn't touch upon in today's presentation, but we can actually grab your current security setup within a particular Workday tenant, and that's something that, again, we can obviously run on an ongoing basis and really helps with building up the scenarios first time round.
Okay, and again, good, you're running into my next question here. Could we run the security for users after every refresh of Sandbox from a production tenant?
Yep, absolutely. You know, we don't limit you in any way, as I said, whenever you run these tests. So you can point these tests at any tenant, whether it be Sandbox, Sandbox Preview, or any of your implementation tenants. So whenever the tenant's refreshed, we can run a particular security pack, as you know, our customers are doing with those 50,000 security checks on a weekly basis, to make sure that those security policies are exactly as you'd expect. And if you have happened to make any changes, then make sure that that's reflected in the security as well.
Cool, thanks. Sort of following on with security, there's two questions here that I think sort of you know, are quite close. The first one is, can this tool perform security audits of user accounts? And sort of following on from that is, we are required to perform security access audits weekly. We manually run Workday reports and scan for results. Could this be done in Smart?
It's great that all the answers to these are yes, but yeah, absolutely you can. So the first question there is that so Smart is obviously a living, breathing audit, and that extends to both the tests and the users that have been around in the system. And what we can actually do is couple the business processes with the security as well, to make sure that you can check that if you are granting any additional security access to a particular user in your tenant, then we can make sure that that is exactly the case, and you do have an audit trail of that particular security access being granted and checked to make sure that ultimately the correct policies are enforced.
Cool. Another question here, and I might speak about it a little bit just before you answer it, is where are screenshots of potentially sensitive data stored? So I know, Tim, when you demonstrated a little bit earlier, you showed for the available actions that there were screenshots taken whenever there was a difference between the expected and the actual result. But I suppose this question is really in relation to the field level security access, you know, and what screenshots are taken there and where are they stored?
Okay, so with the field permissions test, that's something that's slightly different. We wouldn't actually store the screenshots in that instance because we obviously recognize that if there is an instance where sensitive information is displayed where it shouldn't be displayed, we probably shouldn't be outputting that in a screenshot format. So that is one thing that's slightly different, but if there's a failure encountered, but for the business processes, you know, we're obviously going to capture that detail as seen in the slide deck earlier.
Okay. I'm conscious we're running towards the end of time, so I'm just going to ask you one more question here. Is there a library of test scenarios that is delivered by Smart?
So just to touch upon what we said earlier, really, you know, we do work in partnership with the customers to make sure that they have their library as they need it for their own Workday configurations. You know, because the tenants vary so much, we're able to tweak all of the scenarios that are required to be specific to the particular tenant that you're looking to test against.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Tim. I'm conscious we haven't got to all the questions, but I know that we're just running up to the end of our time here. So I'll just hand back to Jill, and just to say again that don't forget that there are the 3 fact sheets that are available in the handout section on the right-hand side of your panel as well. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Will.